years in traveling across the continent to cover all three of Pittsburgh's teams, I've seen fans who became fans of individual athletes as opposed to, the collective black and gold. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Pirates 9, Orioles 5 last night in Sarasota, Florida. Andy Rodriguez went 3 for 3. Leover Peguero homered. And Paul Skenes pitched 3+ innings, allowing a couple of runs. I should say charged with a couple of runs and 4 hits. He left after one batter reached in the fourth. Skenes pitched really well, which is a lot like saying the sky is blue. That's just kind of who he is. Except that to truly understand who he is, and I've been saying this after being blessed to have a chance to get to know the young man over the past year and a half, who he really is who he aspires to be. And that's a trait. Listen, for example, to what he said after this game last night to reporters in Sarasota, including our Jose Negron of DK Pittsburgh Sports, regarding the cutter that he has unfairly added to his arsenal this year.
I didn't have anything like that before, and it was kind of like, well, I throw 100. Why don't I throw a 90-mile-an-hour slider, basically? Why don't I throw a breaking ball that's, around 90? Because I can, because my sweeper was like 85 last year. And so, that's part of it, but also the sweeper's so big. If I don't get any swings on the cutter, it's still going to get me swings on the sweeper.
I don't lightly make comparisons to Sidney Crosby, and I am not doing that now. In fact, I'm not even coming close to doing that. Sid's got 2 full decades of incredible, mind-blowing achievements, and he will finish his NHL career as one of the consensus handful of best players to ever play the game. Skenes, by comparison, was the Rookie of the Year. So let's keep it in perspective. But when it comes to that trait that I'm talking about, the one where you're already great, you're already arguably better than anybody else, and you just keep seeking ways to become greater, that's a Sid thing. For those of you who don't follow hockey, Sid spends every summer, and he has spent every summer of his 18-plus years in the NHL acquiring a new and specific skill or honing an existing skill with such a push and such precision that he ends up elevating that very, very, very small thing into yet another weapon that he can utilize over the course of a game. Small example, one summer, just focused entirely on faceoffs, brought in people who excelled on faceoffs, former players, learned a bunch of tricks, how to pull it back on the backhand, how to push it out on the forehand, how to tie up the opponent, how to time the dropping of the puck from different linesmen around the NHL. That's Sid. That's Skenes. That's a young guy who doesn't act at all like a young guy, also a Sid parallel, meaning, of course, back when he was still Sid the Kid, and never accepting that just being the best is the pinnacle. He knows himself that he's got another layer, that he's got another level that he can attain, and so he's not going to limit himself to 4 pitches or 5 pitches. He's also not going to get comfortable with whatever it is that he's got just because it worked in 2024. And that, my friends, at the risk of taking this any further, because it's really easy to do that with Skenes, is the kind of athlete who can, and I'm sure in Skenes' case, will develop his own fan base, independent of the Pirates, independent of Pittsburgh, possibly independent of baseball, because he's going to become bigger than that. He's going to become bigger than all three of those: the team, the city, and even the sport. I've covered some phenomenal athletes in my 30 plus years of doing this, and that includes the 5 Olympics I've done. And the closest that I can come for comparison points, people like Sid and someday Skenes, are the Olympians, are the Usain Bolt, are the Michael Phelps, are the Katie Ledecky, are the ones who are so much above everybody else that they will draw attention just because of that. They're the ones that I see in the dead of winter in a Winnipeg or in Edmonton with the kids wearing a Sid sweater while everyone else in the family is wearing a Jets sweater. That's who this is. Or I should say, that's who this is going to be. And I know, when you hear this, you think, wow, he really needs to be in Pittsburgh for life and Bob nutting this and Bob nutting that. I get that, okay? I also get that the way for that to happen, if we're all being realistic here, is the same way that it happened for Sid to stay in Pittsburgh his whole career. And that's through a salary cap. Because without the cap, the outgrowing of the team, of the city, of the sport will take him wherever the economic system takes him. And that is, of course, to Dodger Stadium. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragechek.org. That's gunstoragechek.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Mark Douglas, who asks, DK, the Pirates offseason has been like that TV show where they give someone an earpiece and off camera they get them to say dumb stuff. It's like someone's in Ben Cherington's ear going, tell them we're going to raise payroll. Wait, and now tell them we traded a starting pitcher for an injured platoon bat. Wait. Now tell them we signed a 36-year-old outfielder. How can this even be real? There's cheap and then there's this, and we are clearly being pranked. Yeah. Yeah, you are, Mark. That's all part of this. And one of the reasons, actually, truth be told, the chief reason that I bring up the salary cap as often as I do, and by the way, for as long as I have, way before it was okay to even discuss, some of you will recall, is that in a lot of ways, it is the best path toward forcing Bob Nutting's hand, at least when it comes to spending. It wouldn't make him a good owner. A good owner is good at hiring. A good owner establishes a culture of accountability. A good owner is adept at recognizing way before Nutting does when things are really, really wrong inside his organization, including specific things, like, for example, something nobody ever talks about, that he let this terrible Latin American scouting director fester for years before Cherington finally got rid of the guy last summer when he was seeking out scapegoats to save his own job. That's bad ownership. And by the way, it's way more damaging than a 10 or a 15 or even a $20 million difference in payroll from where you'd want it to be to where it actually is. This is way worse. But if you have the cap system, and here I go saying this for only about the 10 millionth time, despite the sound of the terminology, a salary cap does not just refer to the ceiling, to the maximum amount the teams can spend. A salary cap system puts into place a ceiling and a floor, and the gap between the two is a reasonably tight range of around $20 million in most settings. On top of that, there's greatly expanded revenue sharing, so that every team in the league can demonstrably afford to spend within that range. If you hear anybody else simplify the salary cap system to be something else, they're not aware of it, they're not familiar with it, and they're just making stuff up. This is how it works in the NFL, in the NHL, and to the best of my knowledge, in the NBA. With all that precedent, you sure wouldn't be reinventing the wheel if it were implemented in Major League Baseball. The best of the best players don't get as much, with the significant exception of quarterbacks in the NFL, but the guys at the very lowest end of the spectrum do much better in all three of those leagues than they do in baseball. So it all balances out. And from there, if you're a team that's run by baseball dummies, you're still going to stink, which is why the Pirates still would not be, home free if they got a cap system, because Nutting doesn't hire the right people. And by the time he does get around to firing them, so much damage has been done because he doesn't have that accountability in him, or the awareness, or both. So what they've done this offseason is what they've done pretty much every offseason. It's who they are, it's what they are, and it won't change until there's some sort of significant outside pressure, most likely from multiple different directions, not least of which is Major League Baseball headquarters in New York. And by that, I only mean getting the cap done. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.